welcome back everybody. We're on lesson number 2 of our series of 10 where we're looking at still life, and we started by looking at natural forms and botanical art. So last week we concentrated on drawing techniques, and I got everybody to do different things like blind drawing, continuous line drawing, scribbling, all sorts of different techniques, basically to get you to really focus on the things that you're looking at, because as you know, botanical artists are known for really taking apart the things that they look at. Oh gosh, got someone arriving. There we go. They take apart the things they're looking at, they really dissect them and get close into all of the details and things of the objects and create these beautiful artworks. So we kind of had a little bit of a go at that on some individual pieces last week. So today we're going to do something similar, except for perhaps we're going to use Biro pens or drawing pens to do the work as well, which is something I often get everybody to do. But I've got a particular artist called Sarah Simblett who does these amazing drawings of detailed flora and fauna and things like that. So we're going to have a look at some of that stuff in a few minutes. I've got a really nice book here that I'm going to flick through and just talk to you about. One of the things that I'm interested in as well is how a composition, how we might arrange a group of these objects on a piece of paper to draw, and obviously also putting things inside of a vase or something like that. So if there's time, I'm going to show you how to draw like a vase or a vessel of some type, you know, in order to get those sides correct, you know, get the proportions of them right and things like that, using some measuring techniques as well. Okay, so right, okay, so we'll go over to the studio wall. Hopefully I've got things arranged nicely for you there. So here we go. Here's a piece by Sarah Simblett. And one of the interesting things about this one, as well as it being a really nice drawing, is there's often like these really nice little descriptions next to them. I'm not saying that everyone's got to do a description and things tonight. I photographed this from the book that I brought along tonight. So it's got the cardoons layers of scaly outer leaves creating it. I can't even read that. Around the florets inside and protected and close them. So I really love the use of language. As you know, with my artwork I use text and things and collage text into my drawings and things like that. So I kind of like that sort of thing. But if we look closely at this drawing, you can see how line has been used. You've got cross hatching, you've got curved lines to show the shape of something, you've got wavy kind of lines to show the sort of crispness and of the edge of the object as well. It's not completely shaded in there. There are areas that are really just left and areas that are dark to create this lovely drawing here. Okay, so this is one of Sarah Simblett's pieces of work from the book that I've got, which I thought I'd just like to show you. And let's see if we've got another one here. So this is a little bit about, I've kind of taken this idea of things being arranged on the page. Another artist which I'd like to show perhaps another day is Elizabeth Blackadder, who arranges all of these flowers in kind of rows and things like that. But here we've got a whole page of drawings. So like if you imagine a sketchbook where you were studying some of these flowers and things like that, you would see different drawings arranged, very much like we looked last week at Leonardo da Vinci's work. So you've got the sketchbook and the notes and things. So I thought it'd be quite nice to try and do something like that this evening, and then maybe add some colour to it later, if you find you've got time. And then what else have we got here? Oh, there's one hiding over there. So let me just see if I can grab hold of it. There it is. It's some pine cones, I think. So let's just get these pine cones over here. So again, we've got, I mean, I think this might even just be a pencil drawing, but the contrast and the variety of mark making is is really interesting as well. So you can see just inside the pine cone, it's not the best picture. I think this one was from the internet actually, but you can see just about see the cross hatching that's going on inside of there to build up the tone, and then the really deep tones are almost completely black. And so one of the things that people often talk about is, oh, how do I do all of the petals on something like an allium or something like that? So I'm going to have a look at that technique as well. I've written a note to remind me, because I know I say things sometimes and I don't always get around to doing them. But let's just get that down again, nice and small. So that's another Sarah Symbolic one. Let's have a look, see if I've got another one. On this one here is quite nice too. Just got to unlock it so I can move it around. Hang on. There it is. Right, got it. Right. And this one, look, you can see the whole process of the drawing that's going on here as well, which I think is fascinating, because you've got at one end on the left hand side, and it says drawing class up there. This is from the book that I've got here. You can see how the drawing has been started. So if we go right inside there, you can see this kind of shape where the curves of the pine cone have been examined, and the structure has been created. And then if we go over here, you can see how gradually the details have been built into the drawing. Okay, so one thing to remember is that obviously different artists learn to do things in slightly different ways to each other, but it's very instructive to be able to have a look and see how these artists actually create these amazing drawings. So this is from obviously from Sarah, and look, you can see over here she's studied a few of the pine cone prongs, or whatever you would call them, over there as well. So another really lovely one. So I'm just going to turn that one off, and we've got a leaf here as well. There it is. Just turn that one off, and it's hard grabbing hold of the right one. And then we've got this one, which is much more clearly a pen drawing. And again, all these techniques will remind me very much of Vincent van Gogh's way of using pen when he does his drawings as well. These beautiful lines and mark making. I thought this one was quite interesting because you've got very clearly much thicker lines where you've got these darker details here, still using lines and cross hatching, and then much thinner ones to show the contours of the leaves, or the petals, if you like, on there as well. And then finally, we've got this one. Just move that one up. I'm just trying to grab hold of it. There it is. Yeah, there we go. And there. Right, so again, an arrangement of different leaves on a page, where again you can see very clearly the way that the artist has built up the tone and shadow, but just literally using line. Again, I think this is more of a pencil drawing, but you can still see how line has been used as opposed to shading, just shading. And I'm doing a lot of this with some illustrations that I'm doing at the moment, and scanning those in to then edit myself as well. Okay, there are lots and lots of examples on the drive. If you feel you need a few more examples, you can find them on the drive, or indeed you can find Sarah's work on the internet as well. Let's get rid of that and bring up what I'd like you to perhaps have a go at. So here's 4 items that I have collected, and I'm going to be working on drawing these. I chose them because they're obviously really different to each other, but also you've got, so for example, you've got these really spiky pieces over here, and then much clearer shapes, and these much more sort of thinner flowers, I guess, or seed pods, and then this one on the end here as well, which I can't remember what it. Somebody reminded me of what it was last week. Sorry, was that? Oh, I can't hear you. We'll discuss it in a minute. Sorry?
Teasel.
Teasel, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to I'd like you to get a piece of white paper, arrange your objects onto the piece of white paper so that we can have a go at drawing them. I think this one's just a closer up version of that. And then I did leave Leonardo's drawings on there as well to remind you of some of the things that we looked at. So I won't dwell on those, but we'll go over to the desktop. Hooray! So here we are on the desktop. There's my my picture that I've created. Now, if you find that you just don't have these things with you tonight, then I've put these pictures. I've already put them on the student drive. So if you follow the link on your email or on the website, you should be able to look around and find the photographs of these if you want to work from these particular images tonight as well. So here's the book that from Sarah Simblett. I have used this before, I think, in previous lessons, but quite a while ago now. So I thought, well, there's no harm in getting it out again. But really beautiful, really lovely sketchbook. It's actually about it's called an inspirational guide to drawing plants. So that picture I showed of the pine cone, it's actually quite a good illustration of what this book's about. It's also got some wonderful photography inside of it, and it talks a bit about images from the past like we did last week. So this has got a papyrus with some details about a plant on. If you remember, I mentioned the Egyptians last week, and some other past botanical drawings, some lovely photography. Here we're talking about mark making, which I often talk about in our lessons as well. So let me I'll zoom in a bit closer, why not? There we go. Let's get focused. There we go. So all the things we've just been observing in Sarah's work are obviously here as well. So I've got loads of stuff on my table, making it a bit difficult. Okay, so we've got hatching lines, we've got cross hatching lines over here, stippling, all of those sorts of things which you'll be very familiar with if you've been to the classes previously. We've got more scratchy edged lines over here. Some of these will be dippy pens or dipping pens. Some might be a fountain pen, or as I've said tonight, bring Biros along and things like that to experiment with. So, and if you remember, I also mentioned I put a sheet on the drive about that as well. So we've got all these really nice illustrations about how to tackle this sort of subject. So this over here, this kind of bulb, very loosely drawn out, and then gradually the detail is added in inside. Look at this one here, it's absolutely fantastic drawing as well. That wonderful detail in it. Just there. And then some of the other things are, like we're looking at, is different sources of inspiration as well. So lots to look at and think about within this picture, within this book I mean. And for me, a little bit of inspiration for what we're doing this evening as well. I wish I could just pass it round to you so you could all have a look. But that's the book there. It's available on the internet if you're interested in it, and I'm not being sponsored. Right, okay, so here's an example of what I've done this evening just before we started the class. And I've used two different media here. So I've used a Biro pen, which comes out a little bit lighter, as you can see. So here, and there's lots of cross hatching and things that have built up the textures. I've also used stippling and things, and you can see that going on over here. I changed the angle of the object in this case to sort of more upwards, a little bit like that, just there, and then this one more from the side. And the interesting thing to look for as well is to think about where the light's coming from on the object. So If the light's coming from over this way, then obviously you're going to get more shadow on that side. So that's something to look out for, and it actually allows you to start filling the space quite nicely as well with all the different textures and the tone to create form. All right, so now I drew something like this quite a few times last week, and when I was at Rawn's last week, a few people asked about drawing the teasels, and we'd been doing all these different drawing techniques that we've been discussing, and I said, well, to start with, you might want to just go in really, really loosely to get just a feel for the spikes and things, and then work back into it. So I would probably start this off by drawing, just like you saw with the pine cone, drawing the overall kind of shape of it and where the spines are going to go, and then an indication. And you could also add some curves to show the form of it as well. And as I'm looking at the teasel, and obviously I can see more of that detail than perhaps you can on the screen here because it comes out quite dark often, but the spikes or the teasely bits are in a particular pattern, so I can actually work out where the direction of the pattern as well, and I can do that going I can see it going the other way as well, like this. And then we did all these techniques, didn't we, last week? So like a continuous line drawing. So I would, if I was drawing something like this with so much detail, I wouldn't get too focused in on that detail. I would be more about getting the feel of the object. So I would be kind of doing almost like this one line technique and changing the scale and the size of those. And you could do it, and this worked very well with the poppy head that I did last week. Could do it really lightly as well, and then build in the tone as you go. So let me just come out a bit again. There we go. Make sure we can see it. Sorry, it's wobbling. Right, so I can start by just very loosely putting in, or even like if you want scribbling in, and then as I'm looking at it, I start to notice that some of these spines have actually got a curve. They're not dead straight or anything. They kind of curve around a little bit. So I wish I had some of the descriptive words that we just read or tried to read of Kate Simblett's work, because that would really help me to describe what I'm seeing in front of me. So, and it's a very loose kind of way of working, but it kind of gets you that texture that we're looking for very quickly. Now on this side, which is the darker side, I can see that there's some of those lines that I was talking about as well, and they're kind of going around like in this direction, so I can scribble those in a little bit. I did start straight away in pen because I feel comfortable to do that, but if you wanted to start with pencil, great, go for it. But remember that with a biro particularly, or even a pen, pencil can clog up a biro and it will stop working. So you have to sort of rub out or move the pen or scratch the pen about a little bit. So, but yeah, so you can get some outlines in with your pencil before you start if you want to. And then I'm going to do a bit of this spiny bit down the bottom here. And then the actual form of the object is darker than the spikes because it's solid inside, I'm thinking. So I can start to harden it up a little bit around those edges. This side is lighter because we've got the light coming across here, like that. And then we can put these spiny bits, start to put these spiny bits in anyway. Come around here. They're really nice, the spiny bits. They make it look kind of really natural and have this kind of energy in them. This is what I like about pen, is that you can keep building up those layers and have a lot of fun doing it, hopefully. So I'm not going to carry on with this too much longer because I want to talk about drawing pots and things as well. But that's probably how I would suggest getting started on it. And then as you continue, obviously you can slow down and start to focus on more refined details and looking a bit closer. I've built that up quite a lot now, so I can start to take my time and look at it. Now I'd imagine as well that with botanical art you might do several sketches of the same object before you arrive at the one you actually want to use, because you would have learned a lot more about the object. So that's another thing to think about there. Okay, so now I just wanted to talk about, before we get on and have a go at doing this, here's all my here's my objects. So basically take about 3 or 4 different things and place them on the paper in a way that looks pleasing, so that then we can start to make a study of each one but also lay them out on the surface of the paper. All right, so that's the idea there. Now with something like this, so I've got a wine glass because my vase is really big, so I'm not going to fit it on the screen really, and I'd like to have it upright and things, but I just thought I'd use this instead. So I'm going to show you how to construct something like this. I'm going to put it up just over there, so you know you're not going to see the object, but you'll get the idea about perhaps how to draw it. So when you're drawing something like this, which is symmetrical, so basically both sides of the object will be the same. If you draw a line down the middle, then the way to start with a bottle, a glass, or something like that, that is actually symmetrical, is to draw a straight line through the middle like that, and then decide how big or small you want the object to be on the page. So and this is before you do any measuring, so I'm going to go for here to perhaps there, like that, and then what we need to do is work out how the sizes, the proportions. Okay, so you're not taking exact measurements from the object itself, but you're getting the proportions of the object to then apply to this space between these two lines. So if I take the top of my glass, and you can do this, I'll show you the technique in a second. So if I took the top to the bottom of the kind of the vessel, the bit that holds the lovely wine, and then I take it from that point and then move my finger down, you can see that from around here it's double. So we could practically divide the space into 2 like that. So and you can use your pencil to divide that space into 2 like so. Okay, and then from there we can start to draw in the shape of the ellipse. So I'm gonna I'm looking at this wine glass now, I'm holding it in my hand from the side, so I'm gonna, with a slight tilt towards me. So when we're drawing ellipses, draw them very, very lightly. This is perhaps a little bit darker than I would normally do for the screen. Do it lightly, because actually, you know, you can go, if you do it really carefully like this, you'll probably find that whereas you want to get a perfect ellipse by doing something like really carefully, it's not going to happen, because you're going to have to correct it. So a nice way to do it is to do it a bit more freely and then hone in on whether it's right or not a bit later on. Okay, now the next thing to do then, of course, is to start looking at the curves of the glass. So, and I've just gone a little bit too curvy straight away there, so I'm just going to bring it down and then in like this. And then you can start doing things like this, which is to take your pencil, measure from one side of the glass to the other, and then double it over. And this is where you'll find out whether your ellipse is accurate or not. So the second area below it, which is the kind of a second box, if you like. And I will find that I need to make corrections, which is why it's important not to go too dark straight away. And then the neck of the glass comes down to about here, and because I'm looking at it from an angle and not directly from the side, I need my second ellipse. Now the second ellipse or circular shape is, as I'm looking at it, a little bit smaller than the opening. So about that much, and then I'm going to start drawing in my next ellipse underneath. And as I've said a few times previously, it's sometimes useful as well, or often very useful, if you're standing directly above. I'm sitting at an angle to my page here, so that can make things a little bit harder to see the perspective in the object that you're drawing as well. So a very quick sort of mini tutorial, if you like, about how to tackle drawing 3D objects. 3D objects which are glasses and vessels and so forth. And then from there you can start looking at where the highlights are. So we've got highlights from my lights here and shadows in here as well, and you can start to experiment with you know, the shading and the making it look like glass and things as well, which I will shade this once we've all got started, so you can perhaps see how I might go about it as well. Okay, so that's that. What else was I going to say? Oh yes, alliums. Or this isn't an allium actually. I can't remember what this is either. I'm not very good at remembering things at the moment. Anyone know what this might be?
Hydrangea.
Hydrangea! I think we said it last week, didn't we? Right. So again, something complicated like the thistle, for example, or teasel. You'd start by drawing the structure of it. So we've obviously got a very clear sort of spherical shape here, and then choose a point to get started with. And because I want it to have this really natural feel to it, I'm drawing straight off the screen here. I'm going to do it with this really quick single line drawing. Although I'm not doing it strictly as a single line drawing, I'm just having a look, and you can see how my head's bobbing up and down as I draw, because I'm constantly looking at the object as well. Now you can do this lightly too, because then afterwards, I'll do a little bit more. Afterwards, you can start to add in the detail. So this is exactly what I did at the other class on Friday. Is somebody asked me the same question, and we're a bit worried and a bit scared to do it, to be honest, because the amount of detail. So it's still an observation. You can start like this if you want to, and then, you know, obviously rub the bits out and make it a bit more smart as you go along. I quite like this quality drawing because it has a bit of energy to it and so forth. All right, so and then you can work into areas and use those cross-hatching and shading techniques that I was just talking about a minute ago. And then of course we've got, overall the object is darker, a little bit darker on this side, so I can use lines over the top to start creating that spherical feel. And you'll notice I'm doing lines that go around the object as well. And there's nothing wrong, of course, with using an eraser to lift out certain details when you need to as well. Okay, so I'll just zoom in so you can just see that a little bit closer. So it's a nice quick way to get those marks down for you then to start to work back into a little bit more as well. All right, okay, so oh yeah, so I won't say too much more now because I've said a lot, but once you've got a drawing like this with the objects laid out on the page, you could then start to apply some watercolour to it. So I'll do that in a little while because I'm quite keen for you all to ask questions or get cracking with what we're doing this evening as well. I have also, so if you fancy doing the vase, I've also got this, which I'm going to work from a little bit as well. So this is a collection of all the things that I went out into the fields and got. So you could make an arrangement of things in there if you didn't fancy lining things up on the piece of paper like I've been talking about. So you could arrange things inside of a vase or a cup or something like that to work from as well. So you've got a few options tonight. Main thing is that we'll be working with pens. Start in pencil if you want to, and then after that go for it with the pens, and if we've got time, watercolor on top. Okay, right, so I hope that all makes sense. I've said lots, but if you want me to say something again, just let me know. So a little bit more about Sarah Simblett, because I've got a bit of information here as well. So she studied in Christchurch in Oxford at the Ruskin School of Drawing and Fine Art, and she's a tutor there now as well. And she's known for her precise artistic elegance and a blend of traditional techniques with a contemporary aesthetic. She works with live specimens capturing their essence and anatomical accuracy. And then it goes on to mention a few of her books and things like that. But she is renowned as well. Okay, all right, great. So is everybody okay? All good? Yep. Yeah, excellent. Hi, Megan. Oh, I can't hear you. Are you asking a question?
Sorry, I was muted. Do you want us to arrange something on a page or put something in a vase?
It's up to you. I kind of wanted to go for this sort of thing tonight, but I realised that some people they've got a vase or something like that. Last Friday in Raunds, everybody bought something, and it was amazing. We had loads of stuff everywhere. So I just thought, well, it'd be a shame not to use them. Now people have collected them. So if you've got that, you can work on that. But if you'd like to try what I've got on the screen here, then please do that as well. But we're just using the pens basically this evening. All right.
Thank you.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you. I'll put myself on now. I'm gonna pin myself. There we go. All right. So I'm just gonna, unless anyone's got any questions, I'll do a little bit of shading on this this glass, and then we can then I'll start on the objects. So the important thing about like particularly shiny objects and things like that, like glasses, is the contrast between the dark areas and the light areas. So you've got really strong highlights in places, haven't you? And then you've got really dark areas next to those things. So that is what helps to create that sense of reflective qualities in the work. And then of course there are mid-tones in there as well, but it's the dark and the light areas, the highlights on the glass where the light's hitting the glass, which are important to help those things really pop and give it that reflective quality that we're looking for if we're doing glass or something like that. So I will do a bit on this, and then I'll start on my arrangement that I showed you earlier. And with these objects you can also use shading that's going in the direction of the glass itself too. So the curves around the shape of the object, like on this wine glass here. There's some really amazing vases and things in the and flowers, or all of different types, at Rawn's the other day. Which I used as a demonstration. we go. Do for this one. So if you get stuck on anything like this with drawing the objects like vessels and things and glasses and vases, then one good thing to do is to step back from it, look at it from a distance so that you can kind of assess the sides, because getting the curves correct on both sides of something like this, like a bottle or something, can be really, really tricky and does take a little bit of practice. And you know, even when I'm drawing something like this, I can, you know, have a little bit of a battle with them sometimes. I don't draw these sorts of things every day, but when you get it right, it's quite satisfying. Okay, lovely. Right, I'm gonna put my objects out over here. I won't be able to see them, or you won't be able to see them, so I'll sketch them out. I'm going to use a pencil first, as I said, would be a nice idea for yourselves, and then I'll work into it with Biro. See if I can get them all on actually. Might be able to do something. Let's have a look. It just doesn't look as nice, does it, like that? So I will just focus on my own page for now. There we go. Get those. There. So I'm going to work out where, so I'm going to draw them almost full size in this case. So literally got the things right in front of me as you saw earlier. So I'm just working out whereabouts they're going to go on the page. So I've drawn 4 very light lines, and then I'm going to work out, like with this I keep forgetting what they are, teasels. This teasel, I'm going to work out how many of these teasely spiky bits fit into the rest of the stalk, so I can get it the right proportions on the page. So more or less full size on the page. So from where the spikes start to come out, actually I could do it from the top. I'll do it from the top. 1, so it's about 2 1/3, including the teasel. So if I do from where I'm sitting, actually it's different because they're in different perspectives. So I'm going to have another go. 1, 2, no, it's still about the same. So draw the top of the teasel and work out where I want the bottom to be of the actual round bit, spiky bit, like that. And then stalk, I need to double it and add about 1/3, so that takes me down to the end of my line, which is good. Like that. And then I can start to put in just a few very, very rough, very light details, which I can refine and correct a little bit later. And then over here, everything starts and ends more or less the same as the other object next to it. So let's see if I can get that in there. So again, a really loose sketch. And the other thing you can look for as well is that when you're looking at objects that are next to each other, you can look at this shape here, which is the shape in between the objects themselves. So it's called the negative shape. So you've got the positive shape, which is the plant itself, and then the gap in between it is the negative shape. So look at those shapes carefully and compare yours to the one that is in front of you, the objects, and see if you're more or less the same. Because don't forget, we're going loose at the moment, so we can change things. So I'm going to look at the next object or plant next door. So once you can take on board all of these different sort of elements of what you're drawing in this sort of loose way, you can start to sort of really understand how to draw them a little bit more accurately. So that's number 3. It's there, I think. And then I've got these ones, which are these like spiky balls. These are the ones that get caught in your dog's fur. If you've got a dog. This one is shorter than the other. So I've got one there, and one there, like that. So now I've kind of got, a loose idea about where I want everything to go. And so what I'll probably do is start working straight in with pen. Obviously, if you feel like, you need to put more detail in than what I've done here before starting with a pen, then that's absolutely fine. Just do what you need to do. So here's my Biro. I've also got these. So this is a rollable pen. So that was on the drawing that I showed you a few minutes ago. So you can see how, I really love working with these as well. They're not as subtle, because you can be really subtle with a Biro pen. You can get really faint marks and almost like as beautiful as shading, but with its own quality. With these, you've got to be really gentle with the pen to get much paler and thinner marks on here. So what I'll probably do is I'll do some in Biro and some in pen. I'm going to mix those two things up. So Biro and pen mixed together, perhaps. All right, cool. So does anyone want to ask any questions at this stage about anything before I dive in and start doing my drawing? Is everybody happy? Excellente. If you're not, just unmute yourself and shout.
Okay, so yeah, we've got the structure, we've got the outline of where things are going to go. Oh, this was an artist book that I showed everybody called Angie Lewin, really fantastic artist who creates things, these very pattern-based drawings of plants and things, and then applies those to different projects such as wallpapers, prints, but she's essentially a printmaker, a woodblock printmaker. So really inspiring artist to look at. Not quite in line with the botany artist that, or botanist artist that we've been looking at, but still very, very inspirational, and one of the artists that I really admire and I'd like a print from one day. Anyway, so we're working with the Biro pen here. You can see me building up the mark making and everything on here. I'm also looking a bit closer, just a bit, at all the patterning within the within this teasel just here. A brilliant subject to draw because we've got really interesting structure and lots of texture on here as well. And then onto the next plant over here. So very different again, because we've got these really thin strands and things like that. I'm sure there's a better way of describing these things. But a really lovely subject to draw. It's actually quite interesting when you really start to get into looking closely at these things. You kind of get absorbed by it, really, because your instinct to look closer and to study these things becomes more prevalent, more focused, and things like that. So it's a really great way to explore things using these pens, particularly when we've been looking at artists like Sarah Simblett as well, who has a really fantastic style of working. So in a very short while, I'll be adding some watercolour over the top of this. We were talking today at another art class about, you could reverse this technique, so you could sketch it out very lightly, use the watercolours, and then go in to highlight areas with pen, as opposed to doing it this way, which is a full drawing that's been watercoloured. And that would be very interesting to try out, perhaps in another class sometime. But with the time that we had this evening, I explored using different mark making and just a biro in this case, because the biro, as I mentioned, will be waterproof. So you'll see in a few minutes that I go back over it with the watercolours. Sometimes you can put some, or often you can put some water onto the surface of the paper to help the colour spread as well. So we'll have a look at that in a few minutes as well. I've put this picture onto the student drive. So if you want to see it a bit closer, I've taken a photograph of it that you can zoom into, or even print out to have a closer look at the marks that I've been making and the colours that I've been using. So obviously here we're removing any light pencil marks that I made. This was me just showing what I've done previously, which is using a biro and then using the watercolour back over the top. And I try it out just here as well. So we'll just pause to watch me do that. So often you start off quite lightly with the watercolour and then gradually build. There's me adding a little bit of water around the back behind the subject. I quite like it if the watercolour is allowed to spread a bit outside of the boundaries of what you've drawn. The watercolour's got a wonderful way of making things look natural and fresh, because of the nature of the water in the watercolour spreading out. So you can see here that the colour on these little spiky things, I'm allowing it to spread out a bit. Here I'm using kind of a pinky purpley colour mixed with blue and a touch of brown to soften it. And I'm looking at the shadows that are cast on the paper in the setting that I'm in, and this helps to lift the drawing out of the paper. So sometimes it's nice, and you get some lovely effects if you let the colours do their own thing as well. So leave the colours, even if it's not quite the way you want it, let the colours run, and you get this nice blending of colours as well. Now that this purpley colour that I've got in the background as the shadows contrasts very nicely with a yellowy brown as well. A harmonious colour, harmonious colours perhaps a little bit, because of there's greens in there as well, and then mixed with the browns, and then touches of yellow to bring it forth away from the purple. So we've got this lovely kind of 3D effect from these. There's my paints. I hope you've enjoyed today, and I'll see you again next week for more fun. Thank you. Bye.